Entitled Dill banned me from my grandson's first birthday in my own house, so I packed their bags, changed the locks and kicked them out to teach her a lesson. I am, 66M, single old man. I lost my wife 3 years ago and since then I have been single. Actually, I'm heartbroken. Next Sunday is my grandson's birthday and my Dill has not invited me to the party. I didn't even know there was a party organized until my friend who is their neighbor told me. His granddaughter got an invitation card to the birthday of my grandson. He didn't know I was not invited. We go for morning walks together. On our way to the walk, he told me about the party. It was shocking because I am very close to my grandson and he loves me too. He is turning 1 next Sunday. When my friend told me about the party, I thought it was a small cake cutting event with just the kids of neighbors, but my friend told me that the party was going to be grand and not only the kids, the adults were also invited to the party. The invitation says the kids' name +1. The invitation includes a dinner as well. This was unbelievable because my son is not that well off to spend so much money for his son's birthday party. I snapped at my friend that he was exaggerating it, but he sent me a picture of the invitation card later. He was right. The party seemed big. It left me wondering why was I not invited to the party. It made me anxious. To pacify myself, I said maybe they had forgotten to invite me or maybe the invitation is on the way. There's still 12 days left for the party. My anxiety got the worse in me and I went to meet my grandson. When I went there, I saw Dill immersed in her phone while my grandson was playing by himself on the lawn. I picked him up and played with him while my Dill stared at me from the window. My Dill has always been resentful of me. She has never liked me or my wife. I quite don't get the reason behind her dislike, but maybe she thinks we are inferior to her. Actually, she is from a well-off family but we are not rich. We ain't poor but we don't have as much money as her dad. Besides money, it's a matter of social status as well. Her father is a lawyer but I'm just a mechanic and run a garage. If she's proud of her dad's money, then it's a hollow pride because her father resents her and doesn't give her a penny even when she needs it the most. Last year during COVID when my son lost his job, their finances were affected very badly. She's a homemaker. They had just one source of income. Losing that job was a mighty blow to them. They started living on their savings but eventually, that also dried off. My garage business also dwindled in the COVID lockdown, yet I helped them in whichever way I could, but my finances were also running tight. Their situation got so bad that they were not able to pay their house rent and got an eviction notice from the owner. I was living alone, so I offered them to move into my house while I moved to my garage. I have a 2-bedroom house with a kid's room. I could have stayed in my house with them, but I knew that my Dill would be uncomfortable around me. That's the background of my situation. When I went to meet my grandson this morning, I thought Dill would tell me about their birthday plan, but to my disappointment, she didn't say a word. Until now I was hoping that she had forgotten to invite me, but now it seems evident that she doesn't want me there. It breaks my heart to think what wrong did I do to her to get this treatment. I have always tried to make their life comfortable, help them out, and this is what I get in return. Update 1, thanks for all the kind words. You guys are right. We, in-laws, especially in our 60s, are treated as third-class citizens by our Dills. It does feel very lonely in this world. 60s indeed is a hard time. It's like too old to live and still young to die. I tell you my friend, if you have a partner at your 50s and 60s, treasure them because you're gonna miss them like hell. I never felt the need for a friend until I had my wife, but after her demise, my life is just so empty. Yesterday, my son called me and said they would be dropping the grandson to me. They are going out for shopping. Yes, I babysit for them because hiring a nanny involves money, and here this old man gives them free service. They know how to exploit me, emotionally, financially, and through all means. When they came to pick him up, I asked my son, "Done with the party shopping?" My son's face turned pale. His car backseat was filled with stuff and some of the decorative stuff was popping out from the back window. He dismissed it and said, "Oh no, there's no party. We brought some toys for the baby. That's it." He is not good at lying. I looked at him with a straight face and said, "I saw the invitation card that was given to the neighbors." Before my son could say anything, Dill yelled, "So what? Are you pissed because you needed an invitation to a kid's birthday party? Are you a toddler?" The way she defended it made me mad. I was furious, yet I responded calmly, "Watch your tone, lady." My son said he would visit me the next day to sort out the matter. I kept waiting but didn't show up. How naive of me to think he would come to me to apologize about his wife's behavior and request me to join the party. I know what you guys are thinking, delusional old junkie. Yeah, that's me. I was wondering how they are able to manage the expenses of such a big party. Then I realized that they were hosting a party with my money. Last month, my son borrowed money from me to pay the mortgage on his car. He said he had defaulted for 2 months and now the bank was behind him for the payment. He promised to return it this month. Whenever he borrows money from me, I know that he's not going to return, yet I lend him. I know I'm soft on him, but look at my situation. I have just one son to call a family. I have only a handful of years left. What am I going to do with my money? It is ultimately going to him, so why not give him when he needs it? Until now I never asked him to return the money I lent him, but today I called him and asked for the money I lent him last month. I said, "You promised to return it this month, didn't you? So where is it?" He didn't ever expect that his dad would ask him to return the money. I said, "I want the money by this week as you made the promise." He said, "What?" I affirmed, "You heard it right, I want my money by this week." He came to visit me in the evening. I confronted him about his wife's resentment towards me. He said he was aware of it but couldn't help much. I said, "Of course, you can't force your wife to love me, but you can surely stop lying to me for money. I know you lied about the car mortgage thing to borrow the money for this birthday party. I also know that this party is not for the kids only, their parents are also invited and that too for dinner." "Really? You have so much money to feed your friends and neighbors but not me, whose money you're putting for the event." After my rant, he said, "Are you mad because we didn't invite you? If yes, then it's not me, Sandra, DIL, has prepared the guest list," I yelled, "and you have no say in that? Is Sandra's decision some kind of law that cannot be challenged or changed? Are you telling me you are okay that your wife doesn't invite your father to your kid's first birthday party and too without any reason?" He stood silent with a sullen face. What else he would do? He is too weak to open his mouth in front of his narcissistic wife. He is helpless to defend himself in front of me because he needs my money. Sometimes I blame myself for not raising a strong son. Update 2. I was not keen on taking any revenge, but guess what? I did. Sandra, DIL, crossed all limits of toxicity and gaslighting. On the afternoon of the birthday, I was sitting at the corner of my garage, drinking and sulking when I got a call from my son. I was so stupid to think maybe his guilty conscience has kicked in and he was calling me to invite to the party. Don't cuss me if I say I even bought the gifts for my grandson. I thought if they invited me last minute, I would have to rush. I know I surpassed all levels of desperation. I thought even if they didn't invite me, I owe a gift to my grandson and I would give it to him the next day. To shatter my daydreaming, the call was to babysit my grandson. He had to rush to the office for some immediate work. He said Sandra had gone to pick up her parents from the airport. Hearing this, I lost my mind. I mean, her parents are flying from 2 states away, but I am not invited, who lives a block away. Before I could say anything, he said, he was already in his car, leaving the baby alone in the crib, so I should hurry up. Without any second thought, I rushed to care for my grandson. While I was playing with him, the phone rang. I ignored it a few times, but it kept buzzing. I thought it must be some emergency call, so I answered it. It was Sandra at the other end, and the call was for my son. She was calling him to give some instructions about the decoration. She has been calling him on his phone, but he was not answering. She flipped out on hearing my voice. I said, "I'm not trespassing at your house. Your husband had to rush to the office urgently, so he requested to babysit your son." She screamed at me, asking me to leave the house because she didn't want her parents to see me. I said, "How do you want me to leave lil boy alone at home?" She said she would be there in an hour. The boy could manage to be alone until then, but she didn't want me to be present at her home when her parents came. She said I stink of gas and oil and that my hands and clothes are dirty with grease. I look filthy and she doesn't want her parents or anyone to see me at her house. I felt humiliated by this. It was outrageous. I cried like a baby holding my grandson in my arms. I can't explain you guys how terrible I felt at that moment. Quickly I picked up myself to leave because if she arrived and saw me there, she would break 7 hells on me. While locking the door behind me, an idea stuck in my mind. Damn, it's my house. Yeah, that's right. I gave them my house to live in as a goodwill gesture. And no, they don't pay rent to me. I was like, "Lady, I'm done being a doormat." I quickly called up my workmen with toolboxes. They helped me change the locks of the house, pack their clothes and other belongings, and thrash them out on the front porch. All the big items like furniture and electronics were mine. They didn't bring any. After that, I held my grandson and strolled on the front lawn, waiting for Sandra to arrive. As soon as I saw her car entering the driveway, I went towards it, handed over the baby to her through the window, and walked towards my car. She sat the baby in the car, or maybe gave it to her parents, and came behind me yelling. She screamed at me as to why I was still here when she had asked me to leave. I didn't bother to look at her or respond. I just sat inside my car and said, "If you need any help moving your stuff out, call me." Before she could react or understand, I drove off. Just a few minutes later, she was blowing my phone with her calls. I ignored it. Then she sent me voicemails as to why the lock was not opening and why their stuff was thrown outside the house. I laughed at her messages. I was like, "Woman, get a hint, you have become homeless." I went to my garage and sat at the entrance. I knew she or my son would pop up soon. And there she was. She came charging at me. I said, "Before any evil thoughts come to your mind, let me tell you there's a camera installed everywhere and it is fully functional." She yelled and basically repeated the same stuff, why the house was not opening. I said, "I changed the locks and the key is inside the garage, which stinks of oil and grease and other nuisance. Would like to touch that key?" She was aghast. She pulled her hair and screamed as to why did I change the locks. I stared at her and replied with a straight face, "Remember, that house is mine. I did a favor by letting you all live there." She cut me in between and said, "Then why did you throw our stuff out?" I said, "Because I changed my mind. Now, I don't want you guys to be living there. I stamped her foot, went back to her car and drove off. I knew this was not over. After some time, my son showed up with red teary eyes. That's his technique of manipulation. He was like, "Dad, please give us the keys. I promise Sandra will be nice to you. She's gonna apologize to you." I stopped him right there. "Really? Sandra is gonna apologize to me? Where is she?" His face lit up and he asked me if Sandra apologized, would I give the house back to them? I said, "I don't know, I might consider depending upon how she does it." He stood up to call Sandra. The way he was talking seemed that she was not ready to apologize, but within 10 minutes she arrived. She started off by saying, "Look, I'm sorry." I said, "Hold on, let's sit inside the garage and talk." She was reluctant to get in, but my son gave her a look and she followed us inside, covering her face with a napkin. Her sorry felt like it was a favor to me. She was like, "Okay, sorry. I won't yell at you again. Give us the keys. My parents are waiting outside. They are tired from the journey." I was dumbfounded at her way of apologizing. I looked at my son with wide eyes. She was like, "Okay, sorry again. Enough of making faces. Our guests would be in soon. We need to arrange everything. And yeah, you can join the party too, but please wear new clothes." I could not bear her tone anymore. I stood up and screamed, "Get out. Just get out of here and never show your bloody face ever again. You are not getting the house, ever again. Not even when I die." Instead of being sorry for her behavior, she started yelling at my son, "See, I told you, he's not gonna listen. We should call cops on him." He shrugs off her hands and yells back, "That's his house. We cannot call cops on him. Cops are gonna bash us for mistreating him." He left the garage yelling at each other. My friend who lived next door said that Sandra and my son came back and told her parents what had happened. Maybe she was trying to manipulate the truth when my son intervened and explained the whole truth. Her parents were heard yelling at her. Then they handed over the baby to her and left. Few of the children also arrived for the birthday party. My son asked them to come back after an hour. They quickly loaded their trunk with as much stuff as they could and drove off. After some 30 minutes, they sent out an apology mail to everyone that the party had been cancelled. Some of their big suitcases are still lying on the porch. The friends and neighbors were not stupid to not guess what had happened. The party got cancelled last minute and the stuff lying outside adds up to most of the things that they are being kicked out of the house. That was all that happened until now. I feel no remorse for doing this. They had pushed all my buttons and I could not just stand there and take it. Update 3, my loser son showed up at my door again. 1 week went by since I had kicked them out. It was almost midnight when I heard his knock on the door. I opened the door and said I didn't have any business with him. He held my hands and started begging me to let him inside the house. He said he had been living in the car for a week. He doesn't have enough money to lease another house. With his income, it is difficult to meet the ends even for the household expenditure. He started crying that he could not afford to bear the rent. I said, "Why don't you ask your entitled wife to get a job?" He said she just doesn't want to work. She thinks of herself to be a prize for him because she was way out of the league for him. I burst out in laughter. "Sure, then show off your trophy to get bread. This old man has done enough for you all." I said, "Your wife has always been narcissistic towards me yet gave all my support to you. I gave up on my house and lived in the garage because I loved you and wanted you to be comfortable. What did you give me in return? You let your wife humiliate me? Don't you have a spine to take a stand? Yeah, you have a golden wife and you surely cannot upset her. Then live off with that gold and don't come to me for help." He tried his last bet by saying, "Please Dad, give us the house for the sake of your grandson." I charged at him, "Enough of the emotional manipulation. Don't dare to blackmail me any further. Until now you extorted my money, and my house saying, 'Dad, please do this for the sake of your son.' Now when that card is not working, you are using your son to get away with your demands. Just get out of here. You are not getting anything." The next day he showed up with his wife and son. I said I'm not taking any apology. It's not just about birthday invitations. The hatred is deep-rooted. She hates me for my job. She considers it menial. There's no way I can let anyone mock my profession. Mechanic jobs may be dirty, and our hands may be dirty with oil and grease, but dude, it involves skills. What do you have? You are jobless. Just because you are beautiful and your dad is a lawyer doesn't give you a right to humiliate others." She fell on her knees and said sorry. But I slammed the door in their face. I don't want to have any contact with that toxic woman and that spineless moron. I know it's not the end of the world for them to be kicked out of my house. Eventually, they'll be able to put their life together. I also know for a fact that they would never forgive me. In fact, they are going to make my grandson bitter about me. But that's okay, I have given enough of myself to become likable by my dill. I have realized it hard way that even if you give your life, there are some people who are never gonna like you back. Now, I'm okay with that. Okay being called a grumpy selfish old man who threw his son, Dill, and 1-year-old grandson out of the house to live on the streets. The only remorse I have is for my grandson. That lil creature has no idea what kind of parents he has got. He's living an uncomfortable life because of his stupid parents. But I'm not gonna do anything about it. Now on to the next story. Story 2. Husband cheated on me with my best friend for months and she confessed everything, even showing me their texts, and I'm completely devastated. My husband, 39M, and I, 37F, have been married for 7 years. We have a 5-year-old son. He also has a 9-year-old son from his previous marriage. My best friend, 36F, confessed to me that she and my husband had an affair last year, that ended around Christmas time, 2023. I had noticed some distance there on her part, but she always seemed to have what sounded like valid reasons. I definitely felt like something was different with her, but I never assumed it was anything like this. We still talked and saw each other during the entire time that they were doing whatever they were doing together, and since it all ended in December. She told me now because she has confessed to her husband and she wanted me to hear it from her instead of him. She's filing for a legal separation from her husband, and in their long talk about their marriage and why this was happening, she confessed to the affair she had with my husband. During those conversations, I guess I made the mistake of telling her about the romantic things my husband still does for me and about how good he is in bed. And that's the truth. I thought our relationship was great. I was, and frankly still am, in love with him. I never had any sense that he wasn't attracted to me, was interested in other people, was cheating. She said it started in October 2023 and it was just sex. I know she had been very dissatisfied with her own marriage and sex life with her husband because she had talked to me about it several times. At one point she was even considering divorcing her husband. She would always say she loved her husband and he was a good man, but their relationship lacked any sense of romance and he didn't satisfy her sexually. She said she found herself flirting with him at a children's Halloween party in October. She felt very attracted to him and admitted she was jealous of what I had but never thought of pursuing him. Then after the party she decided to text my husband to ask for advice about her husband and their marriage. We're all friends and we get along, and normally I'd never feel weird about her texting my husband for a man's perspective on anything. However, in this case I believe it was just her excuse to start texting him and talking about how dissatisfied she was. She said the text progressively got more and more inappropriate until they were sexting each other. She showed me parts of their text conversation, but I didn't want to look at it. Eventually, they met up in the middle of the weekday to have sex. She said they probably met up and had sex 20 or so times. She claims they talked about it and both felt an extreme sense of guilt, so they mutually ended it around Christmas. My husband is a really good-looking guy. He's a people person. His job sort of puts him in the public light here where we live. He's known in our community. He's out and about a lot because of that. It's not strange for women to flirt with him, and I'd say he is a flirty person, but somebody who definitely knew where to draw the line. Our sex life is great. We make time to do things together, just the two of us. We definitely laugh way more than we argue. I just never thought he'd ever do this to me and with my supposed best friend of all people. This past weekend he was in a trip with his older son. She says she told her husband and I this weekend because she knew my husband was away and this might give me time to process. How considerate of her to think of me now. I feel like all of my insides have been ripped out. I feel completely empty inside, hollow. I picked them up from the airport yesterday and didn't let on that I knew anything. He was in a good mood and acting completely normal. I told him I wasn't feeling good and immediately went straight to bed so that I wouldn't have to interact with him. I'm a bad liar. I'm trying to figure out what in the heck I'm going to do first before confronting him, but I'm not sure that's going to be possible. I'm also worried my friend's husband will contact my husband. I haven't heard from him yet. I should probably reach out to him, but I feel so nervous. I didn't do anything wrong, but I suppose I feel guilty by proxy. It's ridiculous. Later at night when my husband went to bed he was rubbing on me and tried to initiate sex. Normally, I would want sex after being apart for a few days. So it's just not realistic to think I'm going to be able to put on an act for very long. Comments, Anonymous 6771, wow, talk to a lawyer and see where you stand. He is good at hiding and not letting his guilt show, so he might be an expert in this. Time to start looking and see what else he has hidden from you. Look at social media and phone. Good luck and stay strong. New arrival 9860, extreme guilt would be stopping and confessing after the first time. 20 or so times is a full-blown affair. The fact that he has been acting totally normal all this time shows what a good liar her is, so from now on believe nothing. This was not an accident or a mistake. Think of all the deliberate planning that has to take place in order to meet up 20 times and keeping all that sex and all that communication hidden. Keep in mind that if your friend had not told you, that your WH would still be going on with his charade. Just tell him you are getting STD tested, and you are going to see a lawyer ASAP, and you would like him to find somewhere else to stay until the two of you can work out a co-parenting and custody plan. If he won't, then ask him to move out of your shared bedroom. Gray Rock, 180, and only communicate about the kids. Communication about property, etc. Well, that's what lawyers are for. Expect your husband to deny. Keep in mind you don't know if the friend was his only AP, he seems quite adept at hiding his affairs. She may be filing for separation due to her and your WH making plans to be together. Her divorce is a way to force things to come to a head. Zest Close Sky 8765, get a lawyer, a therapist, and a divorce. Your best friend of all people? It's like a sister. If you stay with him, you will forever wonder if he's cheating and be miserable. Read Leave a Cheater, Gain a Life. The fact he can carry on without you even suspecting would seriously worry me. Makes me wonder how often he's lied. Either he's a really good liar/actor, or maybe I'm just that oblivious. I can't believe I noticed nothing. I noticed a difference with her, and the entire time I was concerned about her and what might be going on.